Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So today's video, we're going to build a 4-cell battery pack to work with this Baja NewBright Extreme truck. Now, if you see my last video on this truck, I had to do some work to it to get it running, period. But also I built this 3-cell connector, and we went with 3 batteries. This is normally a 9.6 volt truck, so going to 3-cell is not a big issue. Well, I was asked to go to 4. So we've got our JST connectors here. We're going to build a 4-cell connector. I'm also going to show you exactly how to build a 4-cell connector, which you would do, you know, -1 for a 3 and minus another one for a 2-cell. Now I'm using JST connectors just because it's real convenient for these batteries that I'm using. And these are 600 milliamp batteries. So the truck itself comes with a 9.6 volt, I believe it was a 500 milliamp. But anyway, so we're gonna go with the 600 milliamp setup for each battery, and we're gonna end up with 4-cell in the end, which is gonna put us over 14 volts total. So while we're building the connector, my 4th battery is actually recharging. So we're going to move the truck out of the way at this time. There we go. So you're going to need a couple things, obviously, whatever connector style you want to go with. Our end plug is going to be a Tamiya plug, because that's how I modified the truck, was with a Tamiya connector. Now I'm leaving my wires long on this project because I also want to use these for another purpose later on. If this thing fries, then there's no sense keeping this particular connector assembled. So if it doesn't fry, well, we might just leave it assembled. So you're going to need that, and we're going to need some electrical tape. I'm not going to heat shrink tube this because I want to disconnect it later if something does happen. If it doesn't, well, then I can take it apart and heat shrink tube it, and it'll have a new home. So now to build anywhere from a 2-cell to a 4-cell, even a 6-cell if you wanted to go, or go as high as 8-cell, doesn't matter. What you have to do is follow a specific pattern. In the end result, you only need to have 1 positive lead and 1 negative lead. So, but to do this, we have to arrange them as such so that it builds power, okay? Because the idea is to create more voltage, not the same voltage. On a parallel setup, you would just tie all your positives and all your negatives together, and that would keep your voltage exactly the same, but then of course your milliamps goes way up as well with that. But your voltage would stay the same. The idea here is to get a lot more voltage. Now there's some debate on whether or not you get more milliamps in a series setup. Theoretically they say, you know, you don't get any extra amperage. Well, I don't know. I've gotten more runtime, you know, doing it this way too, so it's kind of a big debate, but we're not going to get into, you know, answering as to yes, you get more amperage or no you don't, but this is about getting more voltage for sure. So that's what we're going to concentrate on today, and building this thing up. Now these wires, you want to check them first, see if they're pre-tinned. These ones are pre-tinned already from the factory, so not a big issue. Now I like to use my little Helpings hand machine, and because it's actually quite handy. And we're going to connect a negative to a positive, okay? Okay, that's one. So a negative into a positive. You want to try and get them as close as you can to each other so that they'll stick properly. Now if you're going to actually make this as a permanent type setup, you might want to cut your wires a lot shorter. In which case you will need to pre-tin your wires properly. Okay, now this is what it ends up looking like, and at the very end you have a negative and a positive. So now we're going to hook our Tamiya connector. First we're going to tin the wires. We've already put some flux on there. You do have to use flux to do this properly, otherwise you can actually cause more harm than good. And now it's going to be positive to positive and negative to negative at the end. Okay, now let's get some electrical tape. Now because this might be a temporary hookup, I'm going to fold each end of the tape at either end so I can easily remove the tape off the wire. If this was permanent, like I said, you'd use heat shrink tubing. Now, the last time I tried something this crazy, it actually did not work, but I've never tried it with a NewBright truck. So if this actually works, I will be totally amazed. I never cooked anything, but this may actually cook the truck. I mean, hey, let's face it, NewBrights aren't the world's best vehicles out there anyway, so you never know how far you can push them. You might be able to, you might not. We're definitely going to find that out right now. We're almost done here. Okay, so let's start hooking up our batteries. There's one. There's number two. Number three. Number four should be charged up by now. Yes, it is. Our light is good, so we're good to go. And number 4. So, next thing we want to do, voltage check. Let's make sure everything's good to go. See if I put this on an angle so you guys can see. Should be able to see that. .6 volts. Awesome. Rock and roll, man. Grab our truck. Get rid of that 3-cell. Power we want off. And I'm going to pop all this stuff inside. And then there's our Tamiya connector. Okay, now I'm going to just shut the camera off here for a minute. We're going to go into the living room and turn the camera back on and see what happens with this. Okay guys, it's time to see if she fries. Okay, power's on. Wow. It works. Okay, I think that's a little worthy. I say we take this little bugger outside and see how she goes up the road. We'll be right back. Hey guys, it's pretty cold out here and it's snowing a bit, but who cares? Wow, you know, this is a big bonus. We actually got some range out of this thing now too. It is stuttering a little bit back there on the range side of things, but it didn't stop. So you still get you get about a good 30 feet out of this, which isn't bad. It doesn't seem to do a whole ton for speed wise. Now one thing we are going to do is check the temperatures of everything. Okay. Alright, let's bring this thing back in. It's starting to struggle now, so I don't know if we're out of power or what's going on, but it's pretty cold out here too, but let's go inside and see how hot everything is and see if we did any damage or not. Alright guys, we're back inside now. I don't know how anything could get hot out there. It's freaking cold. Oh, let's check it out. Well, it doesn't look like we cooked anything. But we could have been overheating something on the board. Because we should get a lot more playtime than that, that's for sure. Let's do a voltage check here and see how things are going. We still got 16.14 volts, so it's not a voltage issue. I'm going to say that even though it works on the 4 cells, I don't think I would recommend really doing it for very long, because it's definitely got to be overheating something on the board, because you guys saw it yourself how it was trying to struggle and whatnot. And really the difference between the 3 and the 4 cell, I didn't really see any kind of performance upgrade, not much anyway. But at the same time, we did notice that it didn't seem to want to go for very long, and it would start to chug out on us. So not a good solution, though it did work and did not fry anything within that time period. I would have expected that if it would have toasted anything, it would have done it right away. You know, because that's just something that technically should happen. But by overpowering without blowing anything, it is going to surge the system down, and it is going to cause that kind of a behavior as well, if you're lucky enough to be able to drive it. Now, on my Audi S4 that I had, which a lot of you may have seen my videos on the Audi S4, I generally ran either a 7.2 volt NIM in it, or NiCad, or I ran a LiPo at 7.4. I did try it going with a 3 cell setup, and it didn't want to do anything but go and as soon as you hit the throttle, it wants to go reverse instead of forward, and if you hit reverse, it still went reverse. So that was overpowering that system, and basically it goes into like a protection mode thing. This thing actually ran, which I'm just at awe, like with amazement that it did, without toasting right away. And it still hasn't toasted, it's still actually running. But I just don't think I would recommend doing it for a long period, because it's just not going to be good for it. You know, that's still plenty of power. See, now I'm just holding this lightly, and it doesn't have a lot of takeoff. You know, take off away from my hand too easily. So this isn't adding any extra torque to it at all, you know. So if you're looking at extra voltage for a torque edge or power edge, it's really not going to have it. And we're 100 milliamps above stock as far as batteries go, if we're actually only getting the 600 out of the 4. So not a big improvement there at all. But the fact is if your stock battery does die, because you can't buy new ones, because NewBright not having any parts access, what you might want to consider is maybe going and building yourself a 3 cell setup, which would be very reliable and a lot better and safer for the machine than going 4 cells. Because 4 cells is obviously a little too much for it. But it does work, and that's how you build a 4 cell connector. So to go 3 cell or 2 cell, reverse the process, and away you go. So anyways guys, hope you enjoyed that video. I did like the bit of range out of that. That was over about 35-40 feet. Did well that way. So the extra little juice helped out there. Now the other thing I will do is I will run the 3 cell setup again once I recharge everything, and I'll do a range test with the 3 cell and playtime test, and we'll see how that goes. So in the meantime, thanks for watching.